At 89, Hollywood legend Robert Redford shocked the world by revealing the names of the 6 actors he hated the most. For decades, Redford was known for his charm, style, and timeless performances. But behind the smile, there were hidden rivalries, painful clashes, and bitter feelings that never healed. In his final reflections, Redford spoke openly about those who betrayed him, disrespected his craft, and left scars on his heart. This truth was something fans never expected, but it reveals the darker side of Hollywood fame and the personal battles even icons like Redford could not escape. Before we dive into video, please subscribe to our channel. Robert Redford's journey to stardom was not an easy one. Born into a modest family, he lost his mother when he was very young, a tragedy that haunted him throughout his life. As a child, he struggled with loneliness and often felt misunderstood. Later, when he entered Hollywood, things did not suddenly get better. Despite his stunning looks and undeniable talent, Redford constantly battled producers who underestimated him, directors who doubted him, and critics who questioned whether he was more than just a pretty face. Fame also came with a heavy price. Redford was deeply private, but Hollywood is a place where privacy hardly exists. The paparazzi intruded on his family life, and personal tragedies, including the loss of his son Scott at a young age, left him devastated. Redford never fully recovered from that heartbreak. On top of that, he faced the pressures of maintaining his image while also trying to push meaningful projects through his Sundance Institute, which often clashed with the money-driven studio system. These struggles built up a quiet anger inside him. Redford rarely spoke about the people he disliked, but behind closed doors, he carried grudges. He believed some actors were selfish, arrogant, or toxic to work with. Some made his life on set miserable, while others betrayed him off screen. It was not until much later in life that Redford finally admitted who these people were and why he could never forgive them. Now we talk about 6 names he dislikes the most, and why. Number 1. Marlon Brando. When Robert Redford first entered Hollywood, he looked up to Marlon Brando as one of the greatest actors of his generation. Brando had changed the craft forever with his raw power in A Streetcar Named Desire and his unforgettable role in The Godfather. But behind the screen, Redford's admiration quickly turned into bitter disappointment. He once said that working in the same industry as Brando was like living with a storm that could destroy everything in its path. The main reason for Redford's hatred was Brando's arrogance and lack of discipline. While Redford believed in preparation, professionalism, and respect for the crew, Brando often arrived late on set, unprepared, and sometimes did not even bother to learn his lines. Directors would have to feed him dialogue through earpieces, and Brando would still shrug it off as if nothing mattered. To Redford, this was not genius. It was laziness disguised as talent. Another thing that angered Redford was Brando's disrespect toward others. He treated younger actors like they were beneath him, and Redford, who valued humility, could not accept such behavior. There were stories of Brando insulting co-stars in front of the crew, mocking their performances, and walking off set when things did not go his way. Redford felt this was the ultimate betrayal of what acting stood for. What hurt Redford most was the wasted potential. He believed Brando could have been the greatest actor of all time if only he respected the craft. Instead, Brando's career became defined not only by brilliance, but also by self-destruction. Redford despised the fact that Brando had his fame as a shield for reckless behavior, while hardworking actors struggled every day to earn their place. For Robert Redford, Marlon Brando was not just a rival, he was the embodiment of everything wrong in Hollywood: arrogance, carelessness, and wasted greatness. Number 2. Steve McQueen. Among all the actors Robert Redford clashed with, none was as heated and personal as his rivalry with Steve McQueen. Both men were Hollywood heartthrobs in the 1960s and 70s, and their careers often crossed paths. But instead of friendship, their relationship turned into open hostility, filled with jealousy, competition, and bitter mistrust. The conflict began when Redford's career started rising rapidly, and studios began offering him the kinds of roles that McQueen considered his territory. McQueen had built his reputation as the king of cool, the rugged anti-hero with charisma. But when Redford entered the scene, producers suddenly had another golden boy who could command box office success. This shift planted the seeds of resentment. Things escalated when the two were considered for the same projects. McQueen allegedly demanded top billing in films where Redford was also being considered, even threatening to walk away unless he was given more money or a bigger share of the spotlight. For Redford, who valued teamwork and fairness, this behavior was pure ego. He despised McQueen's obsession with status and power. Their rivalry was not only professional, it also spilled into their personal lives. Hollywood insiders claimed that McQueen spread rumors about Redford, calling him too polished and not tough enough for certain roles. Redford, who had worked tirelessly to be taken seriously, considered this sabotage. He believed McQueen feared being overshadowed, and instead of mutual respect, McQueen chose hostility. What Redford hated most, however, was McQueen's reckless attitude. Known for his wild lifestyle, fast cars, and constant need to prove his masculinity, McQueen represented every was. Redford rejected. Redford believed an actor's legacy should be built on craft, not on ego or dangerous stunts. For Robert Redford, Steve McQueen was not just a rival, he was a reminder of how jealousy and insecurity could poison even the brightest stars. Their feud became one of Hollywood's most infamous, and Redford never forgave him for turning competition into war. Number 3. Gene Hackman. Robert Redford respected talent above all else, and there was no denying that Gene Hackman was a powerhouse actor. His performances in The French Connection and Unforgiven proved his brilliance. But for Redford, working with Hackman was more of a nightmare than a privilege. Behind Hackman's talent was a short temper, a confrontational attitude, and a constant need to dominate every room he walked into. Redford's dislike began with Hackman's aggressive nature on set. While Redford valued calm professionalism and believed in treating everyone, from directors to stagehands, with respect, Hackman was infamous for his fiery outbursts. He could snap at co-stars, insult crew members, and even challenge directors openly. For Redford, this was not passion. It was pure hostility that poisoned the working environment. The two men clashed directly when their paths crossed during Hollywood's golden years. Hackman had a reputation for belittling fellow actors, and Redford, who believed in humility, found it impossible to tolerate. Instead of collaborating, Hackman often turned scenes into battles of dominance, trying to overpower his co-stars rather than elevate the story. Redford hated this because he believed acting was about serving the script, not feeding one's ego. Another issue was Hackman's unpredictable moods. One day he could be charming, the next day explosive. Redford found this exhausting and unprofessional, especially since filmmaking required trust and stability. Stories spread of Hackman walking off set mid-scene or lashing out over minor disagreements. Redford considered this a betrayal of the craft and an insult to the countless people working tirelessly behind the camera. What stung most for Redford was Hackman's disregard for respect. While Redford built his reputation as a gentleman of Hollywood, Hackman seemed to thrive on conflict. For Redford, Hackman symbolized the kind of actor who let anger define his legacy rather than artistry. In the end, Robert Redford never forgave Hackman for the chaos he brought to sets. To him, Gene Hackman was not just difficult, he was destructive, and Redford wanted no part of it. Number 4. Dustin Hoffman. Robert Redford and Dustin Hoffman are forever linked in Hollywood history because of their legendary film, All the President's Men. On screen, they looked like a perfect match, two brilliant actors portraying journalists who helped uncover the Watergate scandal. But off-screen, Redford's feelings toward Hoffman were far from friendly. While he respected Hoffman's talent, he grew to hate his obsessive behavior and controlling nature during their collaboration. For Redford, acting was about balance, trust, and letting the story breathe. Hoffman, however, was known for his perfectionism to the point of suffocation. He would rehearse a scene endlessly, demand retakes even when the director was satisfied, and sometimes change his performance so drastically that it disrupted the flow. Redford found this exhausting. What others called method acting, Redford saw as unnecessary chaos that slowed everyone down. The tension between them reached a breaking point during the filming of All the President's Men. Hoffman, determined to have the spotlight, allegedly tried to dominate scenes and even clashed with Redford over creative choices. Redford, who had also served as a producer on the film, felt Hoffman was undermining him, not just as a co-star but as a leader of the project. He considered this behavior selfish and disrespectful. Another factor was Hoffman's tendency to blur personal and professional boundaries, and he would constantly question Redford's decisions, argue with directors, and even criticize the crew. For someone like Redford, who valued professionalism and harmony on set, this was unforgivable. He believed Hoffman's obsession with control revealed insecurity rather than true brilliance. What angered Redford most was that Hoffman's behavior overshadowed the message of the film. Instead of teamwork to tell an important story, it became a battle of egos. Redford later admitted he could never enjoy working with Hoffman again because the experience left such a bitter taste. To Redford, Dustin Hoffman was the perfect example of how too much ego even hidden under artistic passion, could ruin both trust and friendship in Hollywood. Number 5. Warren Beatty. When it came to Hollywood glamour, few actors rivaled Warren Beatty. Handsome, charming, and famously surrounded by controversy, Beatty built a reputation not only as an actor but also as a larger-than-life personality. But for Robert Redford, Beatty was the type of star he could never respect. Behind the good looks and fame, Redford saw vanity, manipulation, and a shallow obsession with image that he despised. Redford's dislike of Beatty began with his approach to acting. While Redford believed in discipline, preparation, and authenticity, Beatty often seemed more focused on how he appeared on screen than on the story being told. Redford once remarked that Beatty treated every scene like a mirror, always aware of how the camera was catching his face rather than connecting with the script. For Redford, this was the ultimate betrayal of the craft. Their paths crossed during Hollywood's golden age, when both were competing for leading roles. Redford was rising fast as a respected actor and filmmaker, while Beatty was already established as a glamorous playboy. Instead of camaraderie, Redford felt constant rivalry. Rumors spread that Beatty tried to block Redford from certain roles by leveraging his studio connections. Redford saw this not as competition, but as dirty politics. What Redford truly hated was Beatty's endless need for attention. Whether it was his notorious love life or his reputation as a ladies' man, Beatty seemed to enjoy the spectacle of celebrity more than the art of acting. Redford, who kept his private life guarded and valued integrity, considered this shallow and destructive. He believed Beatty used fame as a weapon, always chasing the spotlight instead of meaningful work. For Redford, Warren Beatty symbolized everything wrong with Hollywood stardom: vanity over substance, image over craft, and ego over collaboration. Their differences were so deep that Redford could never see him as a true artist, only as a performer obsessed with his own reflection. Number 6. Jack Nicholson. Robert Redford and Jack Nicholson were both icons of their generation, but they could not have been more different. Where Redford embodied discipline, elegance, and restraint, Nicholson represented rebellion, chaos, and a devil-may-care attitude. On screen, Nicholson's wild energy electrified audiences. Off-screen, however, his lifestyle and reckless choices made him one of the actors Redford disliked the most. Redford's hatred was not rooted in jealousy of Nicholson's talent. He openly acknowledged Nicholson's brilliance in films like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Chinatown. The real issue was Nicholson's disregard for boundaries, both on and off the set. He was known for heavy partying, showing up to work with little preparation, and bringing his unpredictable personal life into professional spaces. Redford, who valued punctuality and respect for the crew, found this completely unacceptable. Their differences also extended to values. Nicholson embraced the bad boy persona of Hollywood: fast cars, wild nights, and endless scandals, while Redford tried to keep his life private and focus on meaningful projects, like his Sundance Institute. To Redford, Nicholson symbolized the dangerous side of stardom, where fame became an excuse for reckless behavior. Redford also despised Nicholson's habit of stealing the spotlight. Nicholson thrived on dominating a room, turning every gathering into his personal stage. Redford, who preferred subtlety and humility, saw this as arrogance disguised as charm. He believed true greatness came from lifting others up, not drowning them out. What stung most for Redford was Nicholson's apparent disregard for the art of acting itself. While Nicholson often improvised brilliantly, Redford believed his lack of discipline disrespected the craft. He considered Nicholson's approach careless, as if acting was a game instead of a sacred responsibility. For Robert Redford, Jack Nicholson was not just a rival, but the living embodiment of everything he stood against: recklessness, arrogance, and indulgence. Despite Nicholson's legendary career, Redford could never forgive the chaos he brought into Hollywood.